All praises to the Creator Yah. I am just checking my sound, but this is not going to be a very long video. I just want to see this what came across my mind. So this is talking about the wilderness and the desert and being in the wilderness. So let's go. Based on the Tanakh Stone Edition, the Septuagint, First Enoch, Jubilees, and the Apocalypse of Abraham, the wilderness is textually defined not as a dwelling of Yahweh, excuse me, but as the prison of the fallen watcher, Azazel, bound in Dubdel and the domain of the Eloid, spirits of the bastard giants. In these specific pre-New Testament texts, the desert is the realm of impurity assigned to the gods of the nations, Psalm 82, standing in direct opposition to the camp or sanctuary of the Creator Yah. Azazel's prison, the Watchers, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Divine Council. The wilderness as a domain of the fallen. Azazel and the desert dimension. First Enoch and Leviticus. In the Stone Edition, not Leviticus 16:8-10, and First Enoch. The desert is a theological dumping ground for sin, not a holy place. The scapegoat rituals does not send the offering to Yahweh, but away from him to Azazel in the wilderness. So the wilderness, remember, I will plead with you for in the wilderness of the other nations. First Enoch 10:4-5. The archangel Raphael is commanded to bind Azazel's hand and foot and cast him into the darkness and make an opening in the desert, which is in Dud-el, and cast him therein. The separation. This establishes the wilderness as a holding cell for the source of impurity, Azazel, so separating it distinctively from the sanctuary where Yahweh resides. And remember, JC goes to the wilderness. He didn't go to heaven to get backing. He didn't go to Yah. He didn't go to the temple to get backing. He went to the wilderness to get his backing. And the Eloid and the roaming spirits, Jubilees. From now on, I'm going to be referring to him as the earth pig. So when you hear me talking about earth pig, you know I'm talking about JC. The Eloid are identified in First Enoch and Jubilees as the third class of giants, the children or the grandchildren of the Nephilim, the Watchers plus humans. Jubilees 10:1-9, when the physical bodies of the giants, the Nephilim Eloids, were destroyed in the flood, their spirits were not allowed into Sheol. Instead, they became evil spirits that roamed the earth and the wilderness, afflicting the nations until the final judgment. Domain. These spirits dominate the places of the other nations. And remember, Yah tells you that in the wilderness, when you go read Exodus, he's going to send us into the wilderness. Then he tells you over in Ezekiel, he's going to send us into the wilderness. Okay? What is the wilderness? He's going to send us up under these other people. Since you want to do it, go on over there then. Go on over there then. So, that's what he did. So these spirits dominate the places of the other nations, aligning with your references to the wilderness being occupied by hostile entities rather than the Creator Yah. The Council of the Nations, Psalms 82 and 83. So y'all keep forgetting that Psalms 82 and 83 go together. They go together. The Septuagint and the Dead Sea Scrolls reading of Deuteronomy 2 and 8 and Psalms 82 clarified that the nations were divided according to the number of the sons of God, the fallen Elohim. Psalms 82 is talking about that as well. This is who they got divided to, the fallen ones. I told y'all. Psalms 82. Yahweh stands in the council of the El to judge these gods for what? For governing the earth and the other nations unjustly. He said govern the what? So they govern who? The earth and who? The other nations. The connection. This support the view that the territories outside of Yahweh's portion, Israel, are under the temporary corrupt jurisdiction of the entities like Baal and Molech. Now, the warning in the Apocalypse of Abraham. In the Apocalypse of Abraham, chapter 13 to 14, specifically found in the Slavonic pseudepigrapha, Abraham is taken up by the angel Yah. Yah is an angel. The confrontation. While in the wilderness high place, Azazel appears in the form of an impure bird. And I was showing you on another video, they're talking about the Birdman to dissuade Abraham. He tried to go and dissuade it. So his test, he was testing. Y'all, we all get tested. Yah tells Abraham explicitly to reproach Azazel. Do not listen to him. Reinforce the idea that the entity encountered in the desolate places is the adversary, not the creator. Entities of the wilderness, Azazel, the bound one, identified in the Apocalypse of Abraham as the Lord of the heathens and the scapegoat of the wilderness. He is bound in the desert of Duel, first Enoch, until the day of judgment. The Elod, the bastard spirits. The Eloi, the bastard spirits, the violent offsprings of the Nephilim. In the Book of Giants and the Dead Sea Scrolls, they are described as consuming the earth resources and humanity. They're disembodied spirits now haunt the wilderness. Molech and Baal, the gods of the nations, often associated with the waste places and foreign altars in the Tanakh. In the Wisdom of Solomon, their worship is linked to devouring of children and secret mysteries initiated by the fallen watchers. So would you like to examine the Day of Atonement ritual of the Apocalypse of Abraham, where Azazel is actively cursed, and the Book of Giants fragment regarding the end of the Eloids? Let's find out about the end of the Eloids. I promise you, y'all, I am not going to make this a long video. I am in bed. I am in bed. All praise to the Creator Yah and Him alone. Yahweh, Hayah, Yahuwah. All praises to the Creator Yah and Him alone. Still thinking. The Apocalypse of Abraham, chapter 13 through 14, the Day of Atonement, is weaponized as a counter ritual where Abraham transfers the corruption of the humanity onto Azazel, effectively cursing him as the burning coal of the earth. In the Book of the Giants, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Eloi do not simply die. They witness their own erasure through the dream of the tablet, where Water washes away every name except three. Okay. Show you that. The curse of the Zazazel, Apocalypse of Abraham. In the pseudepigraphical text, the Yom Kippur ritual is not merely about cleansing Israel, but about returning evil to its source. Abraham, guided by the angel Yah, actively confronts Azazel, manifested as an impure bird in the wilderness. The transfer of the garment. Instead of a high priest simply sending the go away, Yah instructs Abraham to verbally strip Azazel of his heavenly authority. How? By not speaking to him. The garment of light, glory, that Azazel lost in his fall is explicitly transferred to Abraham, while Abraham's corruption is transferred to Azazel. For behold, the garment which is in heaven was formerly yours has been set aside for Abraham, and the corruption which was on him has gone over to you. And what is that corruption? Death. What does he say in Psalms 82? They're gonna die like men. The firebrand curse. Abraham is commanded to speak a binding curse that defines Azaz's permanent containment in the earth, reinforces the dual imprisonment mentioned in First Enoch. May you be the firebrand of the furnace of the earth. Go, Azazel, into the untrodden parts of the earth, for your inheritance are those who are with you. Ooh. And the end of the Eloi, the book of Giants, in the book of Giants, found in the fragments at Quran, specifically for Q530 and for Q531, focuses on this psychological torment of the Eloi, offspring of the Watchers, as they foresee the flood. The dream of the tablet. The giant Mawe reports a terrifying vision to his brother. He sees a tablet inscribed with many names being immersed in water. And when the tablet emerges, all the names have been washed away, except for three, representing Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the inevitable judgment, unlike the definite Azazel, the defiant Azazel in Abraham, the giants in this scroll are filled with dread. They realize their strength is useless against the force of heaven, the garden dream. Another giant, Hayah, dreams of a garden where gardeners, angels cut down and burn every tree except one with three shoots. The interpretation, Enoch interprets these dreams not as warnings to repent, but as a final death sentence for the Eloi and the Nephilim. Would you like to explore the dream of the garden in more details and the specific 70 shepherd prophecy in First Enoch that connects to this judgment? No, I would not. I would like to ask a question though. Oh, I did that already, I think. For verses for evidence. So based on Jubilee chapter 10, Deuteronomy 13, and Judges 3, found in the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Tanakh, the presence of the other nations and the spirit of the fallen and the Eloi demons is an intentional, divinely authorized test of love. Whoa! Yahweh explicitly grant permission to Mastema. Oh, I remember reading about Mastema, the prince of hostility, to retain a remnant of the spirits to test humanity, and he leaves the hostile nations in the land to prove Israel's obedience. Ooh. The explicit argument where Yahweh allows 1/10 of the spirits to remain on earth to test and corrupt those who are already drifted into darkness. The decree that specific nations were left not because they were too strong, but to prove Israel and teach them warfare. The warning: the dreamer and the prophets are allowed to arise specifically to know whether you love Yahweh with all your heart. Whoa. The warning that dreamers and prophets are allowed to arise specifically to to know whether you love Yahweh with all of your heart. Thank you. I'm going to give credit where credit is due. I was speaking with Melissa Israel today, and she said this. That Eve, that was a test for Adam and Eve. That everything that Yah has ever done since the beginning of time was a test. It was a test. And I put it in there. And I literally just thought of that. I actually was looking at something else and I just thought of that. So I just wanted to show it to her. And then I was on Mr. Real Talks Live, and then he said, did you pass your test? So you 3 different people Well, two different people who didn't know that they had that this conversation was going to be had with me today. I talked to Melissa separate, then I talked to, and then I didn't even talk to Mr. Real Talk. I just saw his live, and he talked about the test, and then me and her was on the phone, and she was talking about the test, talking about Yah was testing Adam and Eve. He was testing the Israelites. He was testing all of us. Okay, this came from her. It did not come from me. This right here. Okay, the divine permit using the spirits, Jubilee 10. In the book of Jubilees found in the Dead Sea Scrolls 4Q216-228, the spirits of the Eloid and the bastard offspring of the Watchers were originally sentenced to to immediate binding. However, Mastema, the chief spirit, petitioned Yahweh to delay their imprisonment to facilitate a test. The petition of Mastema, stop, little girl. Mastema argues that without these spirits, he cannot execute his function among humanity. Who is Mastema? Because the wickedness of man requires a test agent. Jubilee 10 and 8. The chief of the spirits, Mastema, came and said, Creator, let some of them remain before me, and let them hearken to my voice, and do all that I shall say unto them. For if some of them are not left to me, I shall not be able to execute the power of my will on the sons of men. For these are for corruption and leading astray before my judgment. For great is the wickedness of the Son of Man. And Yahweh's authorization, the 10th part. Yahweh does not banish them all. He grants a specific quota, 10%, to remain as the testing mechanism for humanity, while binding the other 90%. Jubilees 10 and 9. And he said, let the 10th part of them remain before him, and let the ninth parts descend into the place of condemnation. And the nations as the love test. The wilderness of the nations is not just a geographical location. It is a judicial setup. According to the Strong Edition and the Septuagint, Yahweh uses the very entities you mentioned, Baal, Melech, and their other nations, as a primary instrument to measure Israel's loyalty. The judicial test, Judges 3. Yahweh explicitly states that he stopped driving out the nations, Philistines, Canaanites, Sidonians, for a single purpose: testing. I told you they pokers in our sides. Judges 3:1-4. Now, these are the nations which Yahweh left to prove Israel by them. And they were to prove Israel by them, to know whether they would hearken unto the commandments of Yahweh, which he commanded their fathers by the hands of Moses. Woo, I can't make this up. This ain't even me coming up with this right there. That was Melissa said this. The heart test, Deuteronomy 13. When a prophet or a dreamer, influenced by the spirits mentioned in Jubilee, arise and perform real signs, but lead you to other God, Yahweh says, do not stop them, because he is using them to audit your heart. Deuteronomy 13:3. Thou shalt not hearken unto the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for Yahweh your God is testing you to know whether you love Yahweh your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul. The results: isolation, Micah 7. When the test is active, the believer finds themselves isolated, surrounded by the briars of the other nations. Micah 7 describes the state of those undergoing the test, where the prince and the judge, corrupt authorities, work together for evil. Wow. The treachery of the nations. Micah Micah 7, 4-5. The best of them is a briar, and the most upright is sharper than a thorn hedge. Trust ye not in a friend. Put ye not confidence in a God. Keep the door of thy mouth from her that lieth in thy bosom. The weight, the response to this test is not to join the nations, but to wait in the darkness for the light of Yahweh, acknowledging the indignation while the test concludes. Micah 7, 8-9. Rejoice not against me, O mine enemy. When I fall, I shall rise. When I sit in darkness, Yahweh shall be a light unto me, until I plead my cause and execute judgment for me. Until he plead my cause and execute judgment for me. Would you like to examine the 70 shepherds? First Enoch chapter 89 are appointed to manage the testing period. Yes, I would like to. Pause it. Based on First Enoch 89-90, the animal apocalypse, the 70 shepherds are punished for breach of contract and excessive cruelty, while Yahweh, the Lord of the sheep, authorized them to destroy a specific number of Israelites as a disciplinary test. They acted on their own authority to slaughter far more than the quote allowed, driven by malice rather than duty. Their condemnation comes from the testimony of the angelic scribe, the man who wrote before him, who recorded every single unauthorized kill in a book to use as evidence against them in the final judgment. The celestial audit. First Enoch 90. The judgment of the shepherds and is legalistic. They are not punished for killing, which they were commanded to do, but for exceeding the limit set by the Lord of sheets. They are cast into the abyss of fire before the fallen watchers because they betrayed a direct trust while holding a divine office. The evidence against the 70, the limit, the mandate, the quota. Yahweh did not give the nations carte blanche to destroy Israel. He set a strict numerical limit on the destruction intended only as a temporary punishment. First Enoch 89:59-60, and he called 70 shepherds and cast those sheep to them. The sheep, you know who the sheep is. The sheep is the wicked children of Israel. To them that they might pasture them. And he spake to the shepherds and their companions. Let each individual you pasture the sheep henceforth, and everything that I shall command you, you that do. I will deliver them over unto you duly numbered, and tell you which of them are to be destroyed, and them destroy ye. Wow, okay. Wow, so they went above the number. Little girl, be quiet. Yes, based on the Dead Sea Scrolls, Deuteronomy 32 8, First Enoch 8, 89 through 90, and Jubilees 15 through 31. These are the same entities. The 70 shepherds described in Enoch are the sons of God appointed over the nations who constituted the council of the gods, judged in Psalms 82 for their corruption. Whoa! We just connected the Dead Sea Scrolls, Deuteronomy 32 and 8, First Enoch 89 and 90, and Jubilees 15 and 31. We just connected them with Psalms 82, y'all. This is why they took that book out. The Prince of Greece, the Prince of Persia, the King of Babylon, the Prince of Tyre, the guardian chariot are specific members of this said group, y'all. The angelic rulers who were authorized to govern the nations but rebelled by demanding worship and exceeding their mandate of destruction. Whoa! Whoa! The cosmic identity connecting the 70. The appointment, Deuteronomy 32 and Jubilees. The number 70 is not arbitrary. It is the fixed number of the divine counsel allotted to the nations. Whoa! Deuteronomy 32 and 8, Dead Sea Scrolls and Septuagint. When the Creator gave the nations their inheritance, he set the boundaries of the people according to the number of the sons of God. The Masoretic text changed this to the sons of Israel, but the older scrolls confirm it refers to the angels. Jubilees 15:31 confirms the separation. Over all nations, he has placed spirits in authority to lead them astray from him. But over Israel, he did not appoint an angel or a spirit, for he alone is their ruler. Second, the breach of the contract, First Enoch versus Psalm 82. The judgment in Psalms 82 is the direct legal consequence of the crimes recorded in First Enoch. Ooh, First Enoch 89, the crime. The offense, the 70 shepherds killed more sheep, Israelites, than Yahweh authorized. They abandoned the sheep to all the beasts and enjoyed the destruction. The charge, how long will ye judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? Psalms 82 and 2. They failed to protect the weak Israel from the wicked. The results, they are bound and cast into the fiery abyss before the watchers because they betrayed their station. Enoch 90:25. The sentence, I have said ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. That's El Elyon. But ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. Psalms 82:6-7. I knew it. And the specific princes identifying the members, the princes mentioned in the prophets are not merely human kings, but the shepherds, the Elohim standing behind them. The prince of Persia and Greece in Daniel 10, 13-20, the connection is explicit. The angel, likely Gabriel, tells Daniel he was delayed by the prince of the kingdom of Persia. The conflict. This is not a human king holding an angel back. It is a spiritual warfare. The prince of Persia and the coming prince of Greece are the specific shepherds appointed to those nations, fighting to maintain their dominion against Michael, the prince of Israel. The prince of Tyre, Ezekiel 28. Ezekiel addresses the human ruler, but then shifts to the entity empowering him. The identification, Yahweh calls him the anointed cherub that covereth, who was upon the holy mountain of Yah. And in Eden, Ezekiel 28:13 and 14, the fall. This entity is cast out for merchandising his sanctuary. Always money. Always got to be trying to get some coin. Corrupting his divine office for power. Exactly as the shepherds did in Enoch. The king of Babylon, Isaiah 14. The taunt against the king of Babylon targets the spiritual power. Halel ben Sharar, shining one, son of the dawn. The ambition, I will sit also upon the mountain of the congregation in the sides of the north. Isaiah 14 and 13, y'all. And the connection, the mount of the assembly is the seat of the divine council. Psalms 82. And this shepherd attempted to usurp the supreme authority of El Elyon rather than just ruling his allotted nations. 70 sessions. The Dead Sea Scrolls, some judgment. Would you like to look at the prophecy of weeks in Enoch, which gives specific timeline with the shepherd? 77. Yes. When did they lose their authority? Yes, I want to know that. I love learning. $37.37. I'm looking at the counter on my phone. Based on the prophecy of weeks, Enoch chapter 93 and 91, 12 to 17, and the animal apocalypse, first Enoch 89 through 90, you may have missed three critical legal details that ensured the condemnation of the 70 shepherds. The burning of the tower, which violated their contract. The timeline of the sword, week 8. And the rising of the great horn, which forces the final breach. The prophecy of weeks explicitly schedules their judgment for the 8th week of the world history, marking their transition from the era of blindness to the era of the sword. Week 6, the angel of blindness, the house of dominion, first temple, is burnt, and the chosen root Israel is dispersed. The entire nation becomes blinded, apostate, which legally triggers the appointment of the 70 shepherds to rule them. Week 7, the apostate generation. A perverse generation arise. This is the primary period of the shepherds' unchecked tyranny. During this time, the selected ones, the righteous remnant, began to receive sevenfold instructions concerning the whole creation. Week 8, the week of the sword. The turning point. A sword is given to the righteous to execute judgment on the oppressors. This is the precise moment that the 70 shepherds are handed over to the righteous for punishment, ending their authority. I wonder, is this the time? The capital crime, burning the tower. While the shepherds were authorized to kill a specific number of sheep, which is Israelites, you may have missed that the commitment. They committed a sacrilegious property crime that was never authorized. The offense in 1 Enoch 89:66 through 67. The shepherds did not just kill the sheep. They actively participated in burning of the tower, temple, and the demolition of the house. The verdict? Yahweh, the Lord of the sheep, never gave them permission to destroy his sanctuary. This act proved they were not just disciplining Israel, but attacking Yahweh's throne itself. This specific act is recorded by the scribe at the tipping point of their guilt. The trigger, the great horn, 1 Enoch 90. The judgment doesn't happen in a vacuum. It is triggered by a final war. The horn, the great horn, sprouts from one of the sheep, often identified in the context of the Maccabean revolt or the Masonic military leader. The shepherds and the ravens, hostile nation, attempt to crush the horn. The intervention. It is only when the shepherds attack this specific horn that the Lord of the sheep finally steps in with the wrath of the staff. Is that horn, JC? Splitting the earth and swallowing the armies. This leads directly to the throne judgment where the shepherds are bound. The man who wrote the witness, the 70 shepherds denied their guilt, but they are convicted by a single witness who you may have overlooked, the recording angel, often identified as Michael or a specific scribe or angel, the book of destruction. This angel was commanded to secretly record every single exact skill without the shepherds knowing it. I told y'all don't get away with nothing. In the final trial, 1 Enoch 90:20, he opens the book, which contains the exact count of the unauthorized dead and the legal consequences. They are not judged on general wickedness, but on mathematical discrepancy between the quota Yahweh set and the actual records in the angel's book. The heresy of judgment, 1 Enoch 90, the order of the fire. The judgment in the 8th week follows a strict protocol of severity. The shepherds are punished before the blind sheep, but after the watchers. The stars, the watchers, the fallen angels of Azazel and Semjaja are judged first and cast into the abyss. The 70 shepherds, they are judged second. They are found guilty of exceeding their mandate and are cast into the fire abyss beside the watchers, sharing their fate because they acted like them. The blind sheep, the apostate Israelites who collaborated with the shepherds, are judged last and cast into this separate abyss. So up here, I was going to ask a question up here real quick. Let me find it. Based on the text of Apocalypse of Abraham, Isaiah, Daniel, and the Testament of Solomon, there are distinct textual parallels that Yahweh only and the anti-missionary groups use to argue that Jesus fits the profile of the deceiver or the hostile entity rather than the Messiah. The strongest evidence cited by these groups is the Apocalypse of Abraham, chapter 29, where a man appears who is worshipped by the heathen and explicitly associated with Azazel. The man of the heathen, Apocalypse of Abraham 29, a figure worshipped by the nations and kissed by Azazel. The morning star, Isaiah 14 and Revelations 22, the shared title of Hallel, Lucifer, and Jesus, the law changer, Daniel 7:25, the little horn who changes the Torah and times, statutes not good. Ezekiel 20:25, the law of passing sons through fire, human sacrifice. First, the man worshipped by the heathen, Apocalypse of Abraham. In the Apocalypse of Abraham, chapter 29:31, Abraham sees a vision of the end times, the 12th era, and he sees a man who is not described as a savior of Israel, but is a laxity, false comfort for the heathens. The worship, who is this shamed and struck man worshipped by the heathens with Azazel? Apocalypse of Abraham 29, chapter 29-7. The kiss of Azazel. This text describes Azazel, the fallen angel, running to this man, worshiping him and kissing him on the face. Apocalypse Abraham, chapter 29, 3-4. The interpretation. Yahweh only groups argue this identifies Jesus, the shamed and stricken crucified man, as a partner of Azazel, who the heathen Gentile Christians worship instead of Yahweh. The morning star identity, Isaiah 14 verses in Revelations 22. This is the primary linguistic argument used to equate Jesus with the entity Hallel. Isaiah 14 and 12. Tanakh. How art thou fallen from the heavens, O Hallel ben Shara, Lucifer, day star, morning star, son in the morning. Revelations 22:16, New Testament. Jesus speaks, I am the root, the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. The argument, since the title morning star belongs to the fallen cherub in the Tanakh, the groups argue Jesus claims this title is an admission of his true identity as the shining one who seeks to be like the Creator. The statutes that were not good, Ezekiel 20. In Ezekiel, Yahweh describes a judgment where he gives the people over to bad laws because they rejected his Sabbaths. Ezekiel 20 and 25 and 6. Wherefore I gave them also statutes that were not good, and judgment whereby they should not live. And I polluted them in their own gifts, in that they caused to pass through the fire all the openeth of the womb. All that opened the womb. The argument, passing through the fire, refers to human sacrifice, specifically the firstborn. These groups teach that the New Testament, which requires the human sacrifice of a firstborn son, Jesus, and replace the Torah, is the literal fulfillment of the statutes that were not good, sent as a punishment. I told y'all, changing times and laws, Daniel 7. Daniel warns of a little horn that arises to oppose the Creator Yah, Daniel 7:25. And he shall speak great words against the Creator Yah, and think to change times and laws. The arguments. Jesus fits this description because he changed the laws. You have heard it is said, but I say unto you, Matthew 5, he is viewed as abolishing the dietary laws, Mark 7:19, and the penalties of the Torah. Changing times. The shift from the Sabbath 7th day to the Lord's day, the first day, and replacing Yahweh's feast, Passover, Sukkot, with Easter, Christmas, is seen as the mark of the beast's horn. The testimony of the demon, Testament of Solomon. In Testament of Solomon, chapter 15, King Solomon interrogates a female demon, a Enosaphus, the prophecy. When asked, what can defeat her? She replies, I cannot be injured by thee, but the one who is born of a virgin and crucified on the tree. The argument, while the Christian view this as a prophecy of victory, Yahweh only groups argue that because the demons know him, recognize him, and he is part of their prophetic timeline, he is part of the same spiritual heritage, specifically a man mentioned in the Apocalypse of Abraham who works with Azazel, who I told y'all, this fits the great horn. First Enoch 90 and First Enoch 90, 99 through 10. A great horn sprouts from one of the sheep, and their eyes were open. Jesus fits the description of the one who opens the eyes spiritually and physically. The contrast, however, in First Enoch, the great horn fights against the ravens, the Gentiles, and the nations. If Jesus is the one worshipped by the heathens as Apocalypse Abraham, then strictly speaks, he acts as the closer to the shepherd who misled the sheep than the great horn who saves them in the night for the nations, the white bull. Later in Enoch 90:37, the true Messiah is born as a white bull, not a sheep. If Jesus is the lamb, that creates a discrepancy with the Enoch the Messiah, who transfers also into the bull. Would you like to examine specific dream garden and Dead Sea Scrolls book giants to see if the gardener figure there aligns with these descriptions? No. With this, based on Ezekiel 37, Hosea 3, Jeremiah 30, and the structural parallels of Enoch 62, there's a strong textual evidence within the Tanakh and the pseudepigraphics to support the Yahweh only position of the resurrected King David is the true elected one and Prince forever who sits on the throne of glory, standing in direct opposition to the man of the heathen, Jesus Hallel, seen in the Apocalypse of Abraham 29. In this framework, Daniel 12 describes the resurrection where David rises to his allotted portion, assuming a status functional to Michael as the early vice regent, while Michael remains the heavenly vice regent. The earthly vice regent, and the Michael remains the heavenly vice regent. David, the prince, Ezekiel 37:25 prophecy. David is raised to be prince, Nasi, forever over the reunited tribes, the elected one. First Enoch 62:2 identity. The judge seated on the throne of glory, filled with the spirit of wisdom, Isaiah 11. The true gatherer, Apocalypse of Abraham 31 action. The chosen one sent to summon the people, distinct from the man of chapter 29. The resurrection King David, not Jesus. The Tanakh evidence. Unlike the New Testament, which claims Jesus is the son of David, the prophet explicitly names David himself, David my servant, as the one who will rule in the resurrection, the prince forever, Ezekiel 37:34. In the vision of the dry bones resurrection, Yahweh does not appoint a new son of God. He reinstates the original king, Ezekiel 37:24-25. And David my servant shall be king over them, and they shall dwell therein, even they and their children. And my servant David shall be their prince forever. And when he says prince, I told you when he's saying king and prince, he's talking about angelic. The distinction, the Hebrew word used is Nasi, prince, exalted one, imply a ruler who is subject to Yahweh the king, fitting the prince like Michael description. The latter days king, Hosea 3 and Jeremiah 30. The return to David is the condition for the end times. The return to David is the conditions for the end time. I said it again. The return to David is the conditions for the end time. Hosea 3:5. Afterwards shall the children of Israel return and seek Yahweh their Elohim and David their king, and shall fear Yahweh and his goodness in the latter days. Jeremiah 39. But they shall serve Yahweh their Elohim and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. Key insight, the phrase raise up, quam, is the same verb used for resurrection. The identity of the elect one, First Enoch 62. The Yahweh only interpretation identifies the figure on the throne in First Enoch 62 as the resurrected David, based on the specific attributes given to him which match the root of Jesse, prophesied in Isaiah. The attributes in First Enoch, David and parallel, Isaiah 11, 62, Enoch 62, the throne, the master of the spirits, which is Yah, seats him on the throne of his glory, 62:2. A branch from Jesse with righteousness shall he judge the poor, Isaiah 11:4. The spirit of righteousness was poured out upon him, 62:2. The anointed, the spirit of Yahweh shall rest upon him, and the spirit of wisdom, Isaiah 11:2. The judgment. He slays the sinners by the words of his mouth. 62 and 2, Enoch. He shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth. Isaiah 11 and 4. Conclusion. The elect one is the executioner of Yahweh's will. If David is the prince forever, raised to rule, he fits the profile of the one seated on the throne to judge the nations who oppress Israel. The two messiahs of Apocalypse of Abraham. The Yahweh only reading requires a sharp distinction between chapter 29 and chapter 31, separating the deceiver from the deliverer. Woo! Jesus is the deceiver, the earth pig, the counterfeit, the man of Azazel, chapter 29. As you noted, this figure is kissed by Azazel and worshipped by the heathens. This is identified as the Christian Jesus, the shamed, struck man. Role, he provides laxity, lawlessness, and leads the nations astray. The true prince, the chosen one, chapter 31, in the final judgment, in the 12th hour, Yahweh sends a different figure. The text, and then I shall sound the trumpets, and I will send my chosen one, having in him one measure of all my power, and he will summon my people, born of the nations that have been shamed. So he's going to be born of the nations that have been shamed. And in the connection, this chosen one performs the gathering of the exiles, the job of David king in Ezekiel 37, and burns the enemies. He does not die for sins. He executes judgment for the righteous. The prince, like Michael, Daniel 12. While Daniel 12 focuses on Michael standing up, the connection to David lies in the resurrection of the wise. Daniel 12, 2-3. Many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, and that wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament. The parallel, David described as the man after God's own heart, is the distinct ruler of the earthly realm, Prince of Israel, just as Michael is the ruler of the heaven realm, the prince of the angels. The status, neither is Yahweh, both are prince, SARS and Nazis, who serve the Creator Yah. This contradicts the Christian Trinity by aligning perfectly with the divine council model, where David joins the council as an immortal ruler. Hallelujah. Now, do y'all see the difference? Can y'all see it now? Do you have eyes that can see now? Do you have ears that can hear now? If you do, shout hallelujah. All praises to the Most High Yah and Him alone. Woo!